Welcome everyone to episode 72 of the Thundercraps podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I'm your host, a sawed-off midget, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, a big fat cheese whiz sucking butt, Kyle Hoagland.
See, that's not even fair because that was just a Nitro recap quote.
But it was a damn good Nitro recap quote.
Yeah, I know, but this is Thunder we're talking about. You would think that between the charisma of Mike Tenay and the spot on comedy that is Larry Sabisco, you would think you would get something out of this. But I guess not. I guess the only thing funny about any of this is that we're on 72 episodes of this damn podcast. We're still.
Oh, believe it or not, I actually had multiple quotes. I could have also used for you this week. We'd appreciate it more if he lost 15 pounds, Kyle Hoagland.
But still, it's the same. I feel like it's the same message. I feel like I'm being told the same inspirational message that's being given to me every week. I get it. Working on it. All right. I'm playing tennis 4 days a week. I'm eating a little bit more leaner recently. I have not drank a soda in probably 3 weeks now. So there's a couple little life choices that I am making. And I also want to apologize ahead of time if you guys happen to hear any laughter or giggling in my mic. My wife has her friend over here. She's staying over here for a couple of days, and she has that NES Classic. And I set it up for them down here in the basement, and they are just losing it, laughing so hard. They played a little bit of Pac-Man, some Donkey Kong, and it's just one of those things where you don't remember it maybe too much. Maybe you thought it was easy when you were a kid, but I went out there to try to help them finish, beat a couple levels, and so far I could barely get to level 3 in Donkey Kong, and I still haven't done level 1 in Pac-Man. So, my how the mighty have fallen.
My how the mighty have fallen indeed. And speaking of fallen, I don't know if WCW could fall much more than they have here, July of 1999.
Hey, Russo's not here yet.
It's true. They can fall further. But it is Thunder 72. It is July 22nd, 1999. But we are live, Kyle, in Moline, Illinois. And
real quick, what's your favorite thing about Moline, Illinois?
My favorite thing about Moline, Illinois had to be there was an airport that so funny story about Moline. So
first of all, I didn't think you would tell me anything, but the fact that you actually have a story, now I want to hear it.
Yeah, so Moline is known as as one of the Quad Cities, and they actually, I think, even say that in the riveting opening that Mike Tenay does when he gets you pumped up for 2 hours of superstar action that is WCW Thunder. But I'm at the airport in Moline. I flew into Moline many a times. Actually, most of the time I drive. It's about a 8-hour drive west of here where I live. But every once in a while I even fly in. And it was near the holiday season. That's part of the reason why I flew. I didn't want to risk, coming back in December. You're driving near Chicago, coming into Ohio. The weather could be rough. So I flew into Moline, and it's a Friday morning, and I'm getting ready to fly home, and my wife texts me and reminds me we had a Christmas party that following day for the family, and she reminded me that, hey, don't forget, what did you end up getting as your white elephant gift? And my response was, fuck, I forgot I needed a white elephant gift. So here I am in the Moline airport, which, is about as big as like the Akron Canton airport or something like that. So it's tiny is what I'm saying. And I'm in the one gift shop that is in Moline.
Oh, you're telling me that there's no Spencer's Gifts at this Moline, Illinois?
No, it's their one thing where they're selling, novelty, shirts and mugs and shot glasses and newspapers and candy and gum and Coke and whatever you need is all in this little shop. So I'm hunting around, and I ended up buying 2 T-shirts. They were like purple and pink, and one said we do it better in the cornfields, or what happens in the cornfield stays in the cornfields, something to that. And the other one was something about how Moline makes me corny, or some. They're both very sexual corn-based shirts, and they were like purple and pink. And I bought those, and I went to the White Elephant gift exchange, and my wife brother, who is gay, ended up getting those shirts, and they think they were the funniest, best shirts in the world. So that is my Moline, Illinois shirt.
So a big shout out to Moline, Illinois for really delivering on a fantastic Christmas memory.
They did, and hopefully they can deliver on a fantastic July Thunder. And no better way to open it out than Kaz Hayashi and Van Hammer, Kyle, in your Van Hammer match of the night. Kaz Hayashi is going to go to try to powerbomb, or possibly a pile driver on Van Hammer, which is not going to go so well as one would expect. Van Hammer is going to win with his little Cobra Clutch Slam. I gave the match 2 stars. I thought it was fine. It's Kaz Hayashi and Van Hammer. What do you want from me?
I give it 2 1/4. First of all, I'm bummed that Kaz Hayashi has now completely dumped the Glacier armor remnant. So now I think Glacier is now completely and utterly erased from WCW, which is just don't get me wrong, it was necessary, but it's still no less sad. I actually thought this was a decent match. I had no problems with this match, which is a hard thing to say with a Van Hammer match of the night.
Right.
I really didn't want to like it just as a wrestling purist. I didn't want to like this match, but I did actually enjoy it. I don't know if it had more to do with Kaz, but I think there's always something to be said about having like a small guy taking on like a bigger, stronger person, and I think it does help to enhance the bigger guy while still having the scrappy young quick guy get a couple of his moves in. I don't think anybody thought that Kaz Hayashi was going to pull off some sort of upset. So once again, it's one of those things where Kaz knew what he was going in there to do. He was there to try to make Hammer look good. Hammer didn't look bad in the win. So ultimately, I would say this is about a 2 to 2 1/4 star match, but I definitely had to raise it to that 2 1/4 for sure, because I think I was pleasantly surprised by actually how much time they gave this match. I think this was actually the second longest match on the card.
That is a little surprising, but I guess opening bout, it's not surprising from an opening bout standpoint. It's surprising from a Kaz Hayashi Van Hammer.
Right. It's not so much the idea of trying to keep people locked in, especially with the fact that SmackDown is going head to head with them at this point. Usually a longer first segment, whether that is an interview, which I think that's usually more of a WWE strategy, is you start off the night with a long, convoluted, very story-heavy promo with people in the ring talking smack, whereas Thunder or WCW, I feel like they try to go in there with either like a really high-flying luchador match, or at least something that's going to have action-packed to keep you on the show, or keep you watching the show for at least the first 10 minutes of the show.
And no better way to do that to keep me watching than with Kaz Hayashi and Van Hammer.
Hey, if the formula works, don't mess with it.
After this, we go backstage with Lenny and Lodi, and they are talking about why they don't know what they did to deserve whatever it is they've got at this point. It's very confusing. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with them. And then we cut to our first replay of the night. We're on Nitro, and we see that Miss Madness and Medusa are actually getting into it, so it looks like a little dissension amongst Team Madness. We then cut to another replay, and the Worm, Dennis Rodman, shows up, and his quote-unquote agent is there an agent is trying to get him to sign to WCW for the most money. But Savage is going to come out. They start getting into it, and then we get to more fighting between Miss Madness and Medusa. So looks like.
By the way, did you ever watch the Arliss show?
That does not sound familiar to me.
So what I thought was really funny about this particular segment is that Robert Wuhl, which is the actor who plays Arliss, which he had a show, I think from like 1996 to like maybe early 2000s, where he plays Robert Wuhl plays a guy named Arliss who is a sports agent. And so to put that in perspective, on this Nitro, it's a guy, an actor, playing his character, a fictional character, in a Nitro to pretend to be Rodman's agent, which I just thought is just I'm not saying it's stupid. It's up there, but I find that, like, I thought the whole point of WCW and the allure of, like, WCW when it was popular was that it felt like it felt real. It didn't feel like, oh, we're bringing in. It's one thing about bringing celebrities in, like actors, and you got your Carl Malones of the world, your Jay Leno's and stuff like that. But instead, they're like, hey, Robert Wuhl is not like a big enough, like, A-list celebrity to bring him on because no one knows it, but maybe they know him. It's almost like you bring him in as Arliss because the Arliss character actually probably has more appeal,
notoriety or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, more, I would recognize Arliss. If Robert Wuhl was probably walking down the street right now, I would probably be like, I had to look up what his real name was. Let's put that. I knew he was Arliss, but I didn't know his real name. But so I just found that was a really very interesting touch to put him in here. I don't know if there's some sort of partnership or this was brought in with Rodman, like Rodman's friends with him. I just thought that was a really way out of left field to bring in Arliss on this Nitro.
So in fact, there was, as I was Googling it while you were talking, and while he played Arliss on WCW Nitro, he announced that WCW would appear on Arliss, and it included, there was an Arliss episode where Bischoff guest starred along with Luger, Savage, and Gorgeous George. So
I miss Luger. Where's he been?
Yeah, I don't know. And then oddly enough, I went to Robert Wuhl's filmography to see what else he's been in, and he's been in, I don't know, 15 or 20 shows and movies. Nothing all that interesting, but he was in Batman in 1989, the original Michael Keaton one. He played Alexander Knox, which
he played Knox. He was a reporter.
Yeah, so he actually, in Supergirl this year, he plays Alexander Knox in a newer episode of Supergirl. So there you go. Little fun facts about Robert Wuhl.
You're welcome, everybody.
That's right. That's what you come in here for. Stories about Moline airports and your Wikipedia article of the week.
Your Robert Wuhl fun fact of the day.
We then get to our next match of the night. Brandy Alexander wrestling Miss Madness. Is this our first women's match on Thunder, or did we have that tag team? Do we have a tag team women's match at one point?
I could have sworn that when we were doing the old show,
that was
we had. We had. I think that was one of the highest rated matches we ever had on Nitro. It was a tag match with four ladies, and I think we gave that like a 3 3/4 star rating.
So I think this is the first women's match we then had on Thunder. We've got Larry Zbyszko commenting that a platinum credit card going out to the lady who wins the match. So nothing but misogyny here in 1999.
So it ages well right now.
Yeah. As for the match, it actually I thought was pretty solid for the two. I mean, of course, Molly Holly is, turns out to be a pretty good female wrestler.
Yeah, Hall of Famer.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And they give it some time, and ultimately, Miss Madness is going to win with like a bridge suplex. I gave the match 2.5 stars actually, and I was surprised. The rating does partly have to do with the fact that this is our first women's match, and probably a women's match that at this era of WCW especially, like, just doesn't happen all that often. So there's definitely like a bump there for that reason, a bit of a curve. But I thought the women did well, and I was actually surprised with how much time they gave them.
Yeah, I think the first two matches are probably one of the two longer matches of the entire card. I'm very surprised that Miss Madness won with like I think what was supposed to look like a Northern Lights, but I think she either lost her grip or something, so she just held it down for a bridge. I gave it 2 stars. I definitely have seen way worse men's matches. And yeah, I do agree that from an expectation side of things, and once again, we all know who Molly Holly, is, or Mona, or whatever they're calling her in this. And I know she's Miss Madness, but I think she's also known as Mona. But I'm actually more excited about whether or not this actually turns into a decent storyline or a feud between Medusa and Miss Madness, because I think if they actually care enough about it, it could actually be a decent match.
It could. I thought, and well, we could talk about it a little bit later, but I thought at this point, with Miss Madness kind of working her way out of Team Madness and her feuding with Medusa, alongside of the fact that Savage is all of a sudden feuding with Rodman, I thought for sure they were kind of setting things up for a mixed gender tag match coming up with Rodman and Miss Madness versus Medusa and Savage. But we're not quite there, and we'll talk a little bit later of what ends up happening further with all of this. But that was kind of the direction I thought things might have been heading. We then get Kurt Hennig comes out. He's cutting a promo here. He is angry. He's talking about, apparently Megadeth must have played, so now he's hating on heavy metal as he rips on Mega Crap. He's talking about Goldberg here. He calls Mean Gene a sawed-off midget. He starts saying gold turd. He's sick of him. He challenges Goldberg to Goldberg the skinhead to a match this Monday on Nitro. Man, this was kind of a intense promo here from Hennig.
He was very, very angry with Goldberg, and I also find it very interesting. I think Goldberg and Hennig have one of the, if you were to think of one person that I think has had the longest feud with Goldberg, I'd actually give it to Kurt Hennig, because Kurt Hennig has basically kind of not liked Goldberg since Goldberg won the world title, because Hennig was the first guy that had a chance at the world title against Goldberg. And ever since then, Hennig's always had, every once in a while, just kind of talks a little bit of shit about Goldberg. And some people joke like, nah, Jericho had the best feud, but really, they never really had like a match to make that end, to make that kind of crescendo. But I really believe, honest to God, that Kurt Hennig was doing as much as he can to really get himself in like a main event, kind of light with Goldberg, and he's been working on that since the summer of '98.
It's interesting. I mean, he definitely has it feels like a very one-sided feud, though.
No, oh sure. I mean, once again, the guy Goldberg has at this point lost one match his entire career.
Well, and it's not just from that aspect. I just feel like Goldberg doesn't.
He doesn't reciprocate the feud. Yeah, basically,
and it's almost like Jericho's feud with him, right? Where Jericho for weeks was coming out talking shit and doing all this stuff with Goldberg, and like Goldberg did nothing in return. But I feel like that's most of Goldberg's feuds.
Right. I mean, Goldberg doesn't exactly do promos.
Right.
He for the most part just comes out, spear jackhammer, and leaves. So it's really hard to have that, like, get in the ring and have a promo with Goldberg. So yeah, it is going to be one-sided no matter who it is. But to think about it, like, Goldberg has now been with the company. Well, let's just kind of round up a little bit and say 2 years, right? We're talking like September of '97 or something like that. It's probably when he was around, October '97. And I mean, really, as much of a megastar that he's become, who has been his nemesis throughout? I mean, he's had like brief matches and stints with different wrestlers, but never anything that stuck for more than like I said, like a pay-per-view type of marquee.
Him beating Hogan was a huge match, but he wasn't really feuding with Hogan. It was just
him losing to Nash wasn't a feud. It was a match that he lost. So it's like it's just there hasn't been like a guy.
Bam Bam went after him for a period. I would argue Bam Bam had a bigger feud, quote unquote, than him and Nash did at the same period of time.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, it's him and Hall probably was a feud that, because of what Hall did, cost him the match, and then they had their,
yeah, but I think that ended at Slamboree. So I mean, that was only maybe 2 months at most.
I agree. There hasn't been a lot of feuds, so to speak. So it's interesting that you say that. Henning, though, is going to be in a match after his promo against Chase Tatum. It's weird to me that he challenged Goldberg to a match tonight, and then Goldberg's not here. So, well, I had a match anyways with Chase Tatum. So we do find out Mickey J is from Moline. So good job, Mickey J. As you can imagine, when you got all the rednecks out here and the No Limit Soldiers, chaos is going to break out. Everyone's going to start fighting. There's a heart punch from Swole, but he's going to hit Chase Tatum instead. This leads to a Henningplex. That's your 3 count. I gave the match 2 stars, and I even wrote in my notes, my commentary was, it was almost a sub 2-star match, if we're being honest. And that's kind of right where you put it, Kyle.
Yep, 1 3/4, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I felt like Curt Hennig was trying to tell a story in the ring, which once again, Kurt's got way more experience in the ring than Chase Tatum, and it showed because it really did. It felt like Curt was trying to like kind of lead and kind of like have like a dance partner. You always want to have somebody that's able to lead, and normally that's the heel. And in this case, like Curt, yes, let Curt lead in this. And I think every single time he was doing any kind of offense, Chase was not selling it very well. Like if he got like a kick to the gut, he hardly ever hunched over. If he was being put in like a submission hold, it didn't look like that Chase was really like showing any type of pain or grimacing. He was just basically, kind of pulling on Hennig a little bit. Like, and I feel like I kept on looking at Curt, and it just seemed like Curt was a little frustrated and flustered because it's like it feels like he keeps on getting stuck at the starting line with this match. And it's hard for people if you're not really paying attention. If you are just kind of like watching this as is, it probably doesn't seem like it's really noticeable. But if you're watching the show like we are, where we're like kind of breaking down a match and kind of paying attention to some of these things, this stuff gets really obvious because nothing really happened for the entirety of the match. And I think Curt just kept on trying to dish out some offense and try to, make Chase feel like he's got to, kind of fight back and, be like that face in peril and then, get that second wind. But that really never happened. And then next thing you know, you've got everybody fighting out in the back, on the outside. Then you got Swole coming in with his stupid palm strike to the heart, and that Curt Hennig was able to dodge out of the way. And even that, Chase Tatum just took it to the chest and then just stood there like it didn't even happen. And then he gets put in the Henningplex for the loss. So I just felt like Chase just didn't know how to take anything in this match, and it really turned me off. So I couldn't really give this the kind of ho hum. It was okay 2-star because really in the end, like Chase really didn't do anything.
Yeah, I don't disagree. After this, we go backstage. Lenny and Lodi trying to hide from Sid Vicious. We then go to our third replay of the night. It's the Triad on Nitro. They call out Stevie Ray. We then cut to a match where Stevie Ray gets the pin on Canyon. Which leads to him getting attacked after the match by the Triad. So it looks like the Triad feuding with Stevie Ray. We then go to our next match. It's Juventud Guerrera and Psychosis against Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. 4 pretty good workers here. It's a very quick match, I thought. High paced. It ends up Ray and Eddie are going to win with a pop-up tag team like Frankensteiner for the 3 count. I gave it 2 1/4 stars. I thought it was an entertaining match, and it just, everyone looked fine, but I just thought the match was a little short.
Well, not only was it short, this also had a commercial break in between it.
Yes, that too.
I gave it 2.5, and I do feel like I'm being nice. And I think it just has to do with the fact that like it's hard to, out of respect with these 4 guys, knowing that they only had so much time to have a match. I felt like, I still should give them a decent rating. And I think 2.5 is on the low side of what obviously these guys are capable of doing if you let the match breathe. But the match was fine. It felt more like a spot fest than anything else, which is what it's going to be if you're only going to give these guys 5 minutes in the ring. Like I said, I agree. Just not enough time to give the match any time to breathe, especially for a tag match. And we've talked about that before. Like if you're going to have a tag match, and especially with a tag match with 4 guys in the ring that are, in their own level of it, but they're all decently prolific wrestlers. Like if I think about, if you told me name 5 cruiserweights from WCW, 4 of the 5 are in this ring right now, and
Yeah,
even
that's fair.
Eddie is one of those things where like I feel like Eddie has kind of transcended that cruiserweight, but he still technically has won the cruiserweight title, so it's not like he's not a cruiserweight, but he's kind of like that Jericho level cruiserweight. But Juventud, Ray, Psychosis, Sprinkle and Kidman, I mean those are your big hitters as far as the cruiserweights, and from both both in ring and also just their own personalities and charisma. I like obviously these are definitely your 1, 2, 3, and 4 in your batting lineup probably for the cruiserweights. Eddie was basically there to toss Ray around, which was cool. It was fun. I had no complaints with that. Obviously, Eddie had a quick spot where he was kind of clearing the ring, but I think there was like 3 spots where Eddie kind of used Ray as a slingshot for Ray to do some pretty cool moves. I was just kind of confused with, and it has a lot to do with the fact that we just don't know what's going on Nitro, and Thunder is not doing a good enough job about telling the story that's going on there. And the last time I knew, Eddie Guerrero was on some vendetta against all the luchadors, especially those that were, at one point in the LWO. So I just thought this was a really weird teaming with him and Ray. And even at the beginning of the match, it seemed like they were both kind of staring at each other like, hey, are we cool? And he's like, yeah, we're cool. And they kind of moved on. There are a lot of wrestlers on this roster that I thought I had an idea of what WCW was doing with them, I guess storyline wise or creatively. And then I see stuff like this and I'm like, are they just wiping the slate clean again with Eddie? Like, what the fuck is going on here? There's a bunch of other guys that I say the same thing about. Like Vampiro is a good example of the past 4 weeks. It seems like every week he's doing something different to, make us wonder what the hell's going on. And there's going to be more of that later on in the show, but this is probably one of the first things that I noticed that as far as this particular show, when I started putting that into question.
Yeah. I don't know. I can understand some of what you're saying, but we can save the Eddie talk for another time, I think.
I think so.
We then have Macho Man. He's accompanied out with Miss Madness, as well as Gorgeous George as the Mad Hatter of some sort. He's going to ask for your vote in the 2000 election. He then challenges Rodman to enter the Madness. And then he talks about how he has to trim the fat. This is where Medusa gets fired from the team. He then makes more comments about being president, says it's all about me, and strips Miss Madness of her title. He then tells her to get on her knees and beg for her job. He then fires her too, so this is kind of where it looks like it's just him and Gorgeous George. So after he fired Medusa, this kind of was like, well, maybe there's not a mixed gender tag match here. He then mentions Nash and how he hasn't forgotten about him either. And I just thought this promo had like 18 different things taking place in it, and it just seemed all over the place and not in a good way.
Well, it seemed like he had 5 minutes to do a promo and he needed to talk about 10 things. So he had 30 seconds to do each thing. Like, I mean, I didn't even know. And once again, this is where I'm getting at with this whole, I don't know what the hell's going on, where Macho Man is not in the marquee as far as like taking on Nash. Nash is obviously taking on Hogan, and now there's shit going on with other people that's not Macho Man that's kind of surrounding the storyline of Hogan and Nash. And then all of a sudden now here's still Macho Man going like, oh, I'm not done with you yet, Nash. And I'm like, I think you kind of are. Like, I'm like, it's this, like I said, I don't know what's going on. And so if I were just to base this on Thunder, as far as I'm concerned, Macho Man and Nash are feuding. But if you really are watching, they really kind of aren't.
You're right. And I mean,
and
Nash
also,
and Hogan have a match at the pay-per-view. So,
and is Sid still in the madness, or is that over with now? Like,
it's WCW.
This is all dissolving.
Everything is all over the place right now. But thank God we have Rick Steiner defending his television champion in our television championship in his next match here against Dolph Ziggler, Sick Boy.
So apparently losing to Rick Fuller gives you the number one contendership for the TV title.
That's very nice. Rick Steiner, of course, says his Rick Steiner things, and then he calls out Goldberg as well, so fucking Goldberg's feuding with everybody without feuding with anybody. And as you can imagine, Sick Boy's absolutely squashed here, and Rick's going to win with the Bulldog. I gave the match a 1 3/4 because I was happy it was at least a fast squash match.
I agree. I only gave it 2 stars because Rick actually used the Bulldog instead of some bullshit submission move.
After this, we get our a promo with scenes of the Berlin Wall falling down with some music playing with it, and then Kyle, it looks like enough time has passed since Columbine. Here comes Berlin,
and I can't be happier. Obviously, this is going to be the next big star of WCW.
Absolutely. We then get our 4th replay of the night. Kevin Nash is attacking Horace as he helps Rick Steiner retain the title on Nitro. Hollywood Hogan is not happy about this and says he thought it was about business, but the fact that he's attacking Horace Hogan, his flesh and blood, his family, he's made it personal. And Nash says this is...
You know that guy that Hogan sacrificed during the...
right.
What was that? The Warrior, during the Warrior feud. He absolutely just beat the ever-living fuck out of him and has basically just considered him like a redheaded stepchild, lied to him about whether or not he could be the leader of the Black and White. Look, I get it. It's an easy thing to go to, but if you're really watching the storyline, Horace should really not be a big fan of his uncle right now.
Yeah, right, absolutely. But Nash just says it's real personal. Nash is then going to attack Hogan during some match that Sid was in. Goldberg comes in to clear the house, and Hogan, Sting, and Goldberg are standing strong. What is happening on night? What is going on?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, going back to the Eddie Guerrero thing, like, every time I think I've got a beat on what the hell is going on with these people, next thing you know, I see that.
Makes any sense.
Like, yeah, the last time I knew anything, it seemed like Nash and Hogan were both kind of faces. You know, like Nash has never really like transitioned away from it, and Hogan beat a heel to win the title. Nash helped him win the title, and it just seemed like Nash was kind of like, "Hey, man, I helped you win the title. We're still buddies. We're still part of the Wolfpack together. I think you still owe me a chance at that title this time for real." And I think everybody was on board with that. Okay, if this is going to be a real match where you're not going to finger poke a doom him, you know, to the title, then fine. But now all of a sudden, like. Then we heard like, oh yeah, former Wolfpack member Kevin Nash. And I'm like, so is the Wolfpack even a thing? Because I'm sorry, the Wolfpack was Kevin Nash's creation, and it doesn't make sense for him to be like ousted from the Wolfpack.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on there. Sting is all of a sudden now feuding with Nash, and now Hogan's feuding with Nash. Macho Man thinks he's feuding with Nash. Sid's still feuding with Nash, but also feuding with Sting and had a match with Hogan. This is so confusing, and I don't know. Like, next thing I know, Sting's going to turn heel next week. Like, I don't get it. It's
For all you
so
know,
damn
Sting is a heel right now. I mean,
right.
Is Hogan a face? The only thing I think I'm sure about is Goldberg is not a heel, but Hogan, for all intents and purposes, has been a heel, and all of a sudden now Sting's helping Hogan. But is Hogan a face now? Is Nash a heel? Is Nash a face? They went so far to. It's one thing to blur the lines, but they've literally just. It's like they just took all of the storylines and threw them into a pot and just were like, in this next segment, pull in there. Okay, Hogan, you are wrestling Sid, and the interference is by Nash, and Horace is going to be there. Okay, great. And let's get one more name. Sting. Perfect. All right, in the next match, Rick Fuller and Sick Boy. Fuck. Well, we pulled the names out. Make it happen. So it's literally, I don't know. I don't know what is happening.
Dude, next thing you know, they're like in a couple weeks from now, all of a sudden Hogan's going to wear the red and yellow just to throw another wrench into this. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what the fuck happens. But yeah, it's just if somebody were to read the transcript of like the next like 4 Nitros, I feel like somebody would just be raising their hand like, okay, a question about all of this, and that's all this is. And and what makes it worse is that it's hard to explain it on a second show well enough to make sense. So they just don't. There's like, they're like let's just go ahead. Like whatever's going on in Nitro is a dumpster fire, and then Thunder is just like that wet blanket that's just like, look, we are like sugar-free oatmeal, like that. We have content and we have substance, but there's nothing interesting about this show. If you want the fucking, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, like all the sugar and color and ridiculousness and chaos, that's Nitro.
After this, Nash is on the phone. He's calling in from Scottsdale, Arizona.
I feel like the last 5 times we've seen Nash on Nitro, he's on the phone with somebody.
Well, he's here. He's got a surprise tag team partner. If everyone wants to mix it up on this coming Nitro, he lets us know that Hogan is the enemy, and he's had a change of face. He doesn't trust him, and he's going to drop him like a bad habit. And all he can say is that his surprise tag team partner is somebody he's been friends with for 9 years.
And I feel like it can't be Scott Hall because that's the most obvious choice.
Right.
I almost wanted that. I do remember this specifically when I was watching in '99, and there was a part of me that thought that Shawn Michaels signed with WCW.
If only. That
would have been, how fucking weird and crazy would that have been if Shawn Michaels was 100% healthy in 1999 and became a big player in WCW? Like, do you think that Shawn Michaels would have been able to steer the ship, or do you think this is already like the plane's already going down at this point?
I mean, I would have thought Bret Hart would have been able to steer the ship, and we've seen where that goes.
Right, and also the idea of Shawn Michaels being in the same company with Bret Hart in 99 just also seems like the most impossible thing you would ever hear.
Right. After this, we get our 5th replay of the night. We've got Sting putting Flair in a Scorpion Deathlock, but the referee.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sting is also feuding with Flair. Remember that too.
Right. Bischoff's going to come out. He calls for the bell. Sid's going to powerbomb Bischoff. Hogan's going to come in for the save. Nash is going to attack Hogan. Sting's going to save Hogan. Again, just pulling names out of a hat. What's happening here?
I'm mad that Goldberg didn't show up.
But you won't be mad as Lenny and Lodi are in this next match against Sid. It's a handicap match. Choke slams, power bombs, total squash. We don't need to rate this one. Let's just move right to our main event. It's Ric Flair with Asia wrestling Dean Malenko. Dean's going to try the quick let's open the match up with the Texas Cloverleaf move. Does not work out, but he is going to lock on the figure 4 as is tradition. Mickey J, defending his turf here in Moline as he's going to fight with Flair. The home crowd, they're way behind Mickey J. But Asia's going to get in the ring. She's going to try to protect Flair. Malenko's going to reverse the figure 4 for a curl-up, but Asia's going to distract. Flair's going to walk out of the match, but here comes Saturn and Benoit. The Triad then are going to come in and attack Saturn and Benoit. Cloverleaf on Flair, but DDP's going to come in. Flair's going to get a roll-up for the 3 count. I actually gave this Chaos 2.5 stars. I thought the match was solid between Flair and Malenko. They gave it a quote-unquote clean finish in some aspect of it. Flair was able to keep his heat, which is, I guess, what you want the most. I was okay with the finish, all things said. But it's just more of the chaos that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I gave it 2.5. I'm sorry, 2.25. I think this match has the same issues as a lot of the other matches where we thought that it has a lot of potential. Definitely the people in the ring could definitely give us a good match, but way too short to really let it breathe. This was really overbooked, as you said. It's chaos everywhere. This just felt like, who else is in the back? Let's just throw them out here. And I get that there's reasons for all these guys to be out here. But I don't know. Like I'm not against the win because Dean still looks good. Flair gets a cheating win, which just kind of makes sense. But I guess as an ending, I guess I can't be too mad because usually when you want to end a show, let's get as many people in the ring as possible. That's what's going to create the pop. That's what's going to get all the crowd and get everyone in the crowd on their feet, to kind of see what's going on. So for that, I guess I can't be too upset about that. But I'm just not a big fan of overbooking matches, even if it is, the finale of the show.
That said, it was the finale of the show, so what did you think about this Thunder?
There was more I didn't like than liked. The matches were okay. The show was overall okay. There were a lot of matches that had potential, but they were a victim of lack of time, which is weird because it's a 2-hour show and we had 7 matches, which I would say, if you really think about it, is probably on the middling to lower end. I think we've seen shows where it's been 11 or 12 matches. This one had 7 matches, and yet I think the longest match was about 7 minutes long. So really no match really had like a lot of time to develop anything, which I guess if you really think about it, there really was no reason. There's no real heat or angle development in most, if not any of these matches. And by that, I mean, I'm not saying that like Dean and Ric Flair don't get along. And I'm not saying that, that maybe Eddie Guerrero has a problem with some of the luchadors or whatever, but it's nothing that's going to be referenced or brought up on Nitro. This is Thunder. The big problem with this show has now become that Nitro does not recap Dick from Thunder. And the moment that is happening is when Thunder is a complete afterthought. So I get that these matches now are just going to become more either worker matches or just like, I guess, residual, hey, this is what happened on Nitro and now they're going to have another match here. But in the end, the ending of the match or whatever goes on in the match isn't going to affect what could go on Nitro. Whereas stuff that goes on Nitro, they'll tell us what's going on, what happened, and then thus like justifying what's going on Thunder. None of that's happening on Nitro, where, oh, look at what happened on Thunder, and now they're going to have a match on Nitro. Like, that's not happening anymore, and I don't think it's happening for the foreseeable future. And like I said, that's a big flaw for a 2-show formula because they both should be important. But unfortunately, this is where we are with this, and like I said before, there was definitely more to the show that I didn't care for than liked.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was okay. I do think they try to push some stories for Nitro, as far as Hennig calling out Goldberg. So there may be like a quick replay where they show his promo.
But here's the thing. I know the only reason why I got to cut you off on that is because I don't think anything's going to happen. Like, I'm not convinced that anything really important is going to happen. If they have a match, they're going to have a match. But I think you and I can all guess exactly how that match is going to end. And I don't know. Like, go ahead and continue the rest of it. I don't believe that part, anyways.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm trying to give this show the benefit of the doubt. I think the matches were 2 stars or. And probably 2-star average, so okay-ish. I didn't hate the show overall. I didn't love it, and I wouldn't have been sad if I never watched it by any means. I don't know. I think last week's Thunder was much worse. And the grand scheme of things is, I think as we continue to watch Thunders, we have to ask ourselves, is this the worst Thunder we've seen? And this wasn't that, so.
But at this point, it just feels like Thunder has turned into a, hey, did you miss Nitro? Well, then you're in luck because it will at least give you a little bit of a taste of what happened. Not everything, because if you were to give you everything, then maybe this chaos would make sense. But because we're getting like 3/4 of the story being told, then here you and I are going, what the fuck is going on? Because obviously it's something that's interesting. If it wasn't interesting, we wouldn't be complaining. You and I are more or less complaining because it's like, look at all these stars that you and I have an emotional attachment or interest in, but because I can't follow along with what's going on because we watch Thunder, it's frustrating. So it's one thing where, and I don't know what's worse, is that I guess it's better to give me something that I'm going, what the fuck is going on, versus I have zero interest. It's almost like, you like, I like you more if I make fun of you than if I didn't talk to you at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it, but what was I going to say? I don't know if we watched Nitro, if we would have any more idea of what's going on at this point.
Here's the thing. Without the context of the commentators, I think that's the most important thing. They are usually going to be the guys throughout the show. Like, let's say all that confusion that's going on with Goldberg and Sting and Steiner and Hogan and Nash and Sid, that whole thing, in that like 30-second little package that we watched of two different matches and two different parts of the show going on, it's confusing. But what happens is, as the show is going on, and maybe there's a match between Saturn and Lenny Lane, where I don't really care about who's winning, they're talking more about it, so then I'm going like,
fair.
Oh, okay. It's still kind of weird, but at least there's some context.
There's a little more
given.
context.
But there's no context in these packages.
Sure. No, that's fair. But I don't know. I still think they're just throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks at this point. But that said, we will continue to throw shit at the wall as we break down each and every Thunder for you. So if you haven't yet subscribed to us, please do that. Let us know how we're doing. Leave us a review. And, go give us a follow. We're on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, all of that. And then, of course, you can always go to thundercraps.com for all of our previous episodes. And then go check out Thunder 73. It's July 29th, 1999. July of Thunder. We're almost done. And then we're going to head, as we get closer and closer to Road Wild, we'll watch that, review it, and then be back with you guys next week. For Kyle Hogan, I am Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thunder Craps Podcast.
We are gold-turningly out of time. See ya.